Dear God, please let this message, guide this message the way you want it to go. Send your Spirit to speak through me and help this message reach those who you want it to reach. Open their hearts, give them ears to hear and eyes to see. In Jesus' name, amen. So it's been a little while since my last video, but still most of my comments have been from atheists still. I did get a few comments from some believers, so I know there are a few believers watching. Thank you guys so much, that's awesome. But anyway, this isn't about me, this is about God. This isn't about, me trying to prove myself as being right and you guys are wrong. I have a heart to help atheists because I've been there, I know how it feels. I know you guys, whether you see it that way or not, you might think your life is pretty good. And maybe it is. Maybe it is really a good life that you have, in your atheist bubble. But there is a part of you that is not at peace. There is a part of you that has a hard time with the idea of God. Because so many people believe and you don't. And part of you wants to know how or why or what, and you want to explain why there are so many people in the world claiming to believe and know, and you're just kind of like in this place where you either think you know it's not true, or you are in a place where you're just kind of like, how can anyone say that? And I get it. I really do understand that mentality. I struggled with this too. How could I be so arrogant to have the answer when other people, so many billions of other people, aren't going to make it according to, the Bible. And there are a lot of reasons for this. But that's not even where I'm going to take this video right now. The way this video is going to go is, I need you to see that Christianity and the existence of God is not something that is scientifically disproven. There are many scientists in every field. 30 to 40% of the scientific community believes in God, and a lot of them are Christian. There are Christians in every field of science, even evolutionary biology. There are evolutionary biologists that are Christian. There are, and in every branch of science has Christians in it. Some, start out and get into science as a Christian, and they just they don't find anything, clashing with their beliefs. Or some of them start out as an atheist scientist and find God while they're working as a scientist, and they come to this realization: God is real and the Bible is true. Archaeologists, there's philosophers too. A lot of atheist philosophers have come to Christ. Edward Fazer is one of them. He was a well-known atheist philosopher for many years. My husband knows about him, has followed him for some time. He's now Christian. And there's others that maybe they don't tell their story as vocally, but they are there. They respond to these scientific polls, and they say that they are Christians. So I don't care how smart you are as an atheist. There is somebody smarter than you, or just as smart as you, who is a believer. So being a believer does not mean that you are dumber. It doesn't mean that you are more gullible. I am definitely not gullible. Church and Christianity was the last place I wanted to go. It was the last place. I wanted to find God. I looked everywhere else. And to answer another question from an atheist who asked me, how much of myself have I devoted to other faiths? 10 years. 10 years. I went into all these other faiths. I read from the Quran. I was into like Islam and mystic Islam. I was even in Kabbalah, like Judaism and Kabbalah, Wicca, paganism, Buddhism, a lot of Buddhism, transcendental meditation, and a Reiki. I was in a Reiki circle for a long time. Any one of these experiences, readings, teachings, groups that I went to, God could have came and found me any one of those moments and said, I have been waiting for you. It wasn't until I went into the church. And at that moment, when he spoke to me directly, I have been waiting for you, and I realized Jesus was truly God in the flesh. Jesus was truly reaching out for me my entire life, and I was just too proud, too clouded, too hard to even see him. When I finally heard his voice and I recognized his lordship, the answers to my questions were answered. The filter through which I see my reality now is different. The way I see people now is different. Before, it used to be sort of in a battle with everyone, not everyone, but, just getting through everything and, needing to be right. And, obviously I had friends and people around me always, my whole life. But my point is, getting into things with people, like having any kind of conflict was always seen as a conflict and a hardship. Now, when I get into a conflict with someone, when there is a conflict, I recognize it's not about me. It's not about the other person. There is something else fighting between us that is causing discomfort, and I can recognize this and diffuse it much better. And not in a way where I'm like shoving it down and not feeling it and just like not dealing with issues, but in a way where an issue is not started in me. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain. But this is what God gives you, this sort of gift of a new perspective that is so in line with it's in line with the Bible, but it's in line with just the nature of the universe. It's like looking at it in a way that you've never seen it before. You can see the same room, the same house, the same street, the same city, the same town that you've lived in your whole life, but you now see it through a different lens, and you see the people around you in a different way. Instead of seeing like my jerk neighbor down the street who is loud and drinks and possibly beats his wife and children, instead of seeing him and thinking, oh, what a scumbag, which I have had that thought many times, I now ache for him and his family. I am now compelled to pray for them and just be there for them. If I can see something I can do, if I can be helpful to them, I want to reach out, I want to love them, instead of just, oh, what a jerk, let me keep my distance. It's a totally different lens, and it's a way that it doesn't, if I see him and he starts cursing at me, instead of cursing back and there being like an altercation, it's now, okay, just I don't feel the need to fight him anymore. It's I have compassion for him. Let me see if I can diffuse the situation. Let me see if I can speak some truth to try to help him. It's a totally different way of living, and it brings peace, it brings joy, it brings clarity, and it brings love into situations where there would never be love. And that is only from God. That can only be from God. I mean, the things you start feeling for people that you would never have thought possible, it's unbelievable. Your whole perspective, everything changes. And I just want you guys to have that. As an atheist, why don't you want to have a deep human connection with others, see them for who they truly are in the eyes of the Creator? You know, you should want to see them. You should want to help them. You should want to reach out for them and love them. And some of you atheists, you think you do that. You think you're good people, and some of you may be very good people. Atheists do have a moral compass. I'm not going to say that they're totally lawless, immoral people. But you may be putting barriers up. It's not even just how you're treating other people that's wrong, but you have a Creator that created you, that loves you, that it keeps you alive, that sustains you, keeps the heart beating in your chest, make sure your lungs are moving, gives you things, make sure you're provided for, make sure you have food, make sure you have a shelter over your head, that you have people in your life that give you meaning. Like, your Creator is aware of every experience that you're going through and is involved in all of it. And if you, as an atheist, you might be a good person with others, but you don't recognize what He has done, or you don't honor yourself. Some atheists are good to other people, but they self-harm, they do things to themselves that bring themselves down. They have addictions, they have problems. You can either self-harm or harm this connection with God, cursing Him, or maybe you have a problem with all of these areas. You don't treat people very well. You don't treat yourself very well. You ignore the existence of God. You want nothing to do with any of it. There's all different parts of the spectrum that you can be on here. There's all kinds. But even if you say, you're listening to this and say, I like other people. I try to be a good person. I say hi to everyone. I'm not judgmental. Even if you're sitting here like, what is this girl talking about? You're still missing that filter. Your life is still about yourself. And even some Christians, not every Christian has this part down either. We as human nature, we are self-focused. We are all narcissists on some level. Because we see in this world, in this life, we are experiencing it through our eyes, our own eyes. So we are speaking with our own voice that we're going to have. This is everything that is me. This is going to be me until I go home to God. So we, as human beings, we are very, very aware of ourselves. We are very focused on ourselves, our needs. If we help other people, it's mostly through the lens of glorifying who we are. Like I use this example in another video, giving money to a homeless person and patting ourselves on the back. Like we want to be good to others. We want to be liked, but mostly because we want to be liked by these people. We want to be seen as, oh, that's a good person. Or we are very aware of how we are perceived. And a lot of our good actions, even Christians are so guilty. Everybody is guilty of this. Human beings are guilty of this. I'm guilty of this even to this day. However, you shrink this part of you. You shrink the part of you that wants to be seen as, oh, look at her, she's so great. Oh, look at him, like, oh, look at me. You shrink that part of you because you don't want to be, like, I don't want you guys to be like, oh, Jess, you're so great. I want you guys to be, wow, Jesus is amazing. Jesus. I want to point to Jesus. My actions, whatever good you see me do, whatever good I'm saying to you, it's not me. It's Him. Okay? It's Him. It is Jesus. It is truly through His example, His love, and His provision that I'm even able to do any of this. His strength, His goodness, His love in my heart for me, for others, that flows through. That's what it's about. That's what it's all about. So it's not about being gullible. It's not about, not being scientific or, the evidence is there, but it's a heart thing. It's going to be felt in your heart. It's going to involve a change of heart. It's going to act, you're going to need to, God wants to know if you're going to walk the walk. If he shows himself to you, are you going to walk with him? Are you going to pick up your cross? It's a heavy cross. Are you going to walk with him? Are you going to be okay with being tenderized for him? Are you going to be okay with dying for him? Will you give up your life to him? Will you stop thinking about your life and it needs to be this, I wish I looked like that, and I wish I had this, and I wish I had that thing, and I wish I had this relationship, and I wish I had that? And are you trying to dictate your life, or are you going to allow the God of the universe who created you to be the one who is in charge of your life? Are you going to let him into every area of who you are and let him guide you? If you're not going to let him do any of that, he is not going to show himself to you. And we can argue about this. We can go back and forth with, facts and this and that. But at the end of the day, if you are not willing, he will not open to you. Unless he needs you for a specific purpose and he just radically saves you for a purpose for his glory. He can do that too. He can. He could just one day flip your switch. I've seen that happen to people where one day they are so far away, one day miraculously, they're not trying, they're not looking, they're not willing, the switch just flips. That can happen too. It can happen too. Maybe it will happen to you one day. You never know. You truly never know unless and until it happens to you. There's one other question I want to sort of get to is, and the reason I'm answering this question is because an atheist in my life asked me this question almost as like an aha zinger, I got you. And I feel like this is kind of what the person who asked this was trying to do. They said, if God commanded me to kill my child, would I? And I can emphatically 100% answer, he will never ask me to do this. He will never ask me to do that. One, because my child is his creation. It's his child as well. And he will never want me to kill his creation. Also, he will never ask me to do anything that is against his commands. And clearly that is in his moral law, thou shalt not kill is a big commandment. And he will never ask me to kill anyone. He will never ask me to, even harbor hate in my heart towards anyone. That is the same equally as killing. So no, he will never, I can know if there is ever a voice that speaks to me that tells me to kill my child, I can 100% say that is not the voice of God. The other reason I can say this is because there is actually a story, and this is such a beautiful story, and I really want to share this with you guys. Maybe you'll look at the Bible and God's whole story a little differently with this, because it is truly beautiful. So in the Old Testament, there was Abraham and Isaac, father and son. Abraham had Isaac when him and his wife were very old, and they thought that they were barren, but God gifted them with his son Isaac. So they loved Isaac so much, and one day, clear as day, Abraham wakes up and hears the voice of God, and he knew it was the voice of God because Abraham had been hearing God's voice throughout his life, knew God very well, and he heard God say to him, Abraham, if you love me, you need to go kill your son. And Abraham knew it was the voice of God, so he is going to obey, and he's crying, and but he's doing it, He's kind of like, why? But he's doing it, him and his son is holding this cross, and they're going up a hill. And, Isaac is getting up on the cross, and Abraham's tying his son to this cross, and he's about to kill his son. and he's just about to like throw the blow that would end his son's life, and God stops him like, okay, stop. I know you love me. I know you are mine. I just had to know for sure. Go home. You don't have to kill him. You don't have to kill him. I know you love me. So it was just a huge test from God. And I'm okay. God's going to test me. He has been testing me. He tests me all the time. And I'm okay with him testing me. He can push me to the limit, but he will never ask me to kill my child. If he tests me, I will pass his tests. By his strength and by his grace, I will pass his tests. But he will never ask me to do this to my child. He will never. And the beautiful part of this story is that the hill that Isaac carried the cross and was tied to and was about to die was the same hill that Jesus died on hundreds of years later, maybe even 1,000 some years later. So it's a beautiful foreshadowing, and it clearly says how God did not ask Abraham to kill his only son, but God gave his only son, killed his only son for us. That's the deep love. It's a foreshadowing and also just showing how deep the love was. Because Abraham was grieving the whole time he thought he would have to kill Isaac. God is grieving the fact that he had to kill Jesus for us, but he did it, and he'd do it 1,000,000 times for us again, because that's the deep love. However much love he had for his son, he sees the love for all of us, the love for you specifically. He's like, I need to do this because I know Jessica's going to need me. I know she's going to need me to do this for her. She's not going to be perfect. She's going to be making mistakes. She's going to sometimes try to do things her own way. She's going to try to sometimes take over her own life, and she's going to try to, follow her own path where she thinks this isn't wrong, and, I can do this because it's not wrong, and how could God not want this for me? He knew you specifically, insert your name here. He knew you were going to need him. He knew you were going to need him to take over and to not take over. He knew you were going to need him to shed his blood and die for you, because he knew you were going to mess up. He knew it. He knew all of us were going to mess up. And he didn't want us. He didn't want that. He didn't want that separation. He said, how can I get around this? There's a separation between us. I love my creation so much. How can I get rid of this separation? And he did what he had to do. And he'd do it again and again and again and again. You are the reason for it. And that's the deep love he has for us. And throughout the Old Testament, there's foreshadowing the events that come in the New Testament and that are to come. The Noah's Ark. That's a hint at Revelation and the coming end times. Where us, the believers and the righteous, will be taken up, and the world will be, burned, not with water, but destroyed. So there's that, and then also the parting of the Red Sea with Moses. Moses stretched out his hands, the staff in one hand and the other, his arms were like this. The sea, we were able to cross through the sea. And the enemies, the Egyptians coming after them, were drowned in the thing. Almost at a simultaneous, just like sort of foreshadowing and winking towards Jesus coming in the future, to do the same motion, just to bring us to the promised land through him, while crushing our enemies and anyone that stands between us and try to stop us. No weapon shall form against me. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And it's so much, and there's so much truth in there, and I want to challenge you guys. If you think that, I used to think this too, I'm smarter than all the Christians, and all Christians are just so dumb to believe that. Do some research. There are a ton of Christian scientists. Christians are not dummies. They are not dummies. There are Christian scientists at the highest levels of almost every branch of science. You can find a high-level scientist that is more educated than you or me, that knows more about the world and science than you do. And maybe they aren't all outspoken about their stories, but they're there and you can find them. And there are lists of them, and there are people that do actually tell their story. There's like I said, there's a former evolutionary biologist, Christian, who now teaches at a Christian college, a former atheist. There's a former atheist, well-known philosopher that is now a Christian. There is a molecular biologist who has been a Christian for a long time, and studying about physics and molecular. I don't know exactly what branch, and I forgot his name, because this part isn't as important to me as other things in the faith to remember. But he said that there has never been any contradiction to his scientific findings to anything found in the Bible. There's a lot of brilliant people that happen to be Christians. So you can go ahead and throw that out the window, that all Christians are dumb idea. Because there are some, I guarantee you there are some that are smarter than you. And smarter than me too. And maybe you shouldn't be listening to me if you need something of that level. You should go find these people out. A quick Google search will help you find a lot of this stuff out, and I encourage you to do that if this is something that you're wrestling with. Anyway, I guess that's all for now. So I'm going to close in a prayer. Dear God, please help your children see you. All of your children, the ones that are lost, the ones that are wandering, the ones that turning away from you for whatever reason. They don't want to be associated with you. They have their own mental blocks against you. Tear down their walls. Let them see the truth. Let them feel you. Let them know you. Let them love you. And help them see your beauty and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.